Hi, I'm Amanda and welcome to All Access Eats. Some of you may already know me as an actress, a filmmaker, and the daughter of Meatloaf, but what you might not know about me is that I have a passion for cooking, and I especially love cooking for my friends and family. See, I grew up traveling the world on tour with my dad, and some of my earliest childhood family meal memories come from those that we had backstage with Dad's band and crew. And some of my earliest culinary experiences come from learning to cook those comfort foods from chefs all around the world. So I'm here to share some of those tour stories and those recipes with all of you. So now that I'm a little bit older and Dad doesn't tour as much, most of my time backstage can be found with my boyfriend, Big Chill. He's an amazing musician. Look him up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. He's also in a band called Driftwood Gypsy. Driftwood Gypsy plays a lot of music festivals here in Kentucky and regionally around. So if you don't find me backstage working production, you're going to find me one of two other places. Front of house, dancing my ass off, or back at campsite cooking, because I love to cook for everybody, as you already know. So one of my favorite things to cook is chicken and dumplings. It's cheap, it's easy to make, and it feeds a huge crowd. So that's what I'm going to show you today, and I'm also going to tell you about some mistakes not to make if you're cooking chicken and dumplings at a music festival. So let's get started. So normally when I'm at camp and I'm making chicken and dumplings, I'm going to do it in a really big giant pot. But for the purpose of this episode, I'm going to do it in my shallower saucier, just so you guys can see everything that's going on. So to start, I've taken my pan, preheated it with about a tablespoon of olive oil, and we're just going to start by adding this chicken right in. I don't want to overcrowd this pan, so I'm going to do this chicken in a couple batches. So now that my chicken's all nice and brown, I'm going to set it aside. Normally at a festival, I just have one big pot, like I said, and I throw the vegetables on top. But so you can see what's going on, I'm going to take them out and cook my vegetables separately, and this will go back in later. So next up, I'm going to put in one whole onion, roughly chopped. When I do chicken and dumplings, I like to keep all my veggies really rough, because I like whole bites of veggies when I'm eating it later. That's about 6 stalks of celery and 5 carrots. And they're all going to go ahead and go in here. If you need, add a little bit more vegetable oil. But again, we're going to cook these for about 10 minutes until tender. But while they're cooking, I am going to add plenty of salt. I'm going to add about a tablespoon or 2 of butter. Now into this, I'm going to add, these are tiny bay leaves. Normally I just do 2, but I'm going to go ahead and put 4 in there. And now I'm just going to let these cook until tender, until we move on to the next step. So now that my vegetables are nice and tender, I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. So that's about 5 cloves, which is just the right amount for me. And I just want to cook the garlic for about 30 seconds till it's nice and aromatic as usual. All right, next up, this is going to be a really nice, rich, thick, creamy chicken and dumplings. So I'm going to add about 6 tablespoons of butter. Yeah, it's a lot of butter. But this is going to be a big old pot, and this is going to feed a ton of people. So I just want that butter to get melted all the way. So while I'm letting that butter melt, I'm going to measure out 6 tablespoons of flour, because it's equal butter to flour, right? We're going to dump this right in. And we just want to make sure that flour is cooked. We're not trying to make a really dark roux here, you know. This isn't a gumbo. Just until I get that nutty smell coming off of this. Just a few minutes. Next step, because I've said it before, acids enhance flavors, right? We're going to squeeze half a lemon into this. It's also going to help deglaze that pan on the bottom. All right, Next up, again, in my big pot, all the chicken's gonna be in here. So I would normally put two 32-ounce containers of chicken broth in. For you guys, I'm just gonna do enough to cover these vegetables and make sure all of this flour gets nicely incorporated. Who doesn't love chicken and dumplings, right? This is one of my favorite things to make. I'll stay at my campsite and just anybody who's walking by who's hungry, come and get some. The last time I made this at camp was Floyd Fest last summer, because sadly, as we all know, there's no music festivals this summer, which is the other reason I decided to cook this, because I'm missing my music festival family and friends. I'm missing those good times. Because I want to make sure that this still cooks up correctly, now that you've seen all my steps, I'm going to go ahead and put all of this into one big pot and still show you what I'm doing next. All right, so now I'm going to add all my vegetables and that broth and some of the bay leaves, everything that was in this, we're just gonna go ahead and toss in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and toss all of this chicken right in here. All the juices from the chicken, everything goes right on in. Add all of this chicken broth in. There we go. So my big secret for my chicken and dumplings, because I like it really rich, really creamy, evaporated milk. So I'm going to add 1 whole can of evaporated milk. Next up, I'm going to squeeze the rest. Going to squeeze the rest of this lemon juice right on in there, because that acid from that lemon juice is going to add so much yummy flavor to it too. Next up, just a few pinches of pepper to your liking. So my other little favorite secret for when I'm making big soups, stews, things like that, this is my tea ball. Normally I'm using it to steep, escaped herbs. Normally I'm using it to steep my loose leaf herb teas and things like that. But when I'm making soup, I like to put all my herbs in there. And then this whole ball is just gonna go right on into that broth so that I'm going to get all of the flavor of those herbs, but I don't have to worry about like picking them all out later and it being a pain. You could also use cheesecloth for that, or you can use butcher's twine and tie everything in a bundle. My tea ball is great for that because it's reusable and I don't have to worry about creating more garbage for the world. All right, so now that everything is together, I'm gonna go ahead and put this big pot on a very low simmer on the stove. The chicken's gonna finish cooking, all the flavors are gonna come together. In the meantime, I'm gonna make my dumplings. So normally at a music festival, I am gonna do my dumpling hack, which is just to use pre-made biscuit dough, the kind that you get in the cans, right? But when I'm at home, of course, I'm gonna make my dumplings from scratch. You can also make the dumpling dough from scratch and then bring it with you to the music festival. I've done that too. I'm gonna start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now I'm gonna add 1 hefty teaspoon of baking powder, a good healthy amount of salt, lovely, plenty of pepper, because nobody wants a bland dumpling, right? Which is also why I'm going to add about half a tablespoon of fresh thyme. Do this, get it all over. I like my dumplings to be nice and herby. This is also why I like making them at home, because the biscuit dough that you can get in the store is all well and good and it's yummy, but it's not as good as homemade dumplings. I'm also going to add about 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley from my garden. Next up are liquid ingredients. 4 tablespoons of melted butter and 1 cup of really cold, fresh from the fridge, icy cold, whole milk. Awesome. Now I'm gonna give all of this a really good stir. So I'm gonna work the dough just a little bit just to make sure that you can see it's getting good and stickier and drier as I go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my big pot off the stove and I'll show you how to cook these dumplings. All right, so I've transferred about half of what was in my big pot into this little pot just to show you guys how I'm gonna do this because it's easier for you. But normally, again, this is gonna be in my big old pot. So the first thing I'm gonna do is pull out these bay leaves. We are done with them for now. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my herby tea ball. And before I put my dumplings in, I'm just gonna give this a taste, make sure that I like the flavor of everything. That's good. I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. So the best way I've found to make sure all my dumplings are measured out about the same size, I'm gonna use my ice cream scoop, and I've actually, if you can see inside of it, I've greased it with just a little bit of butter. That's gonna help keep the dough moving. So I'm just gonna do, bam. And just kind of space them out a little bit because these are gonna blow up and be huge in a little while. I'm gonna make sure I've got all my, I don't wanna waste any dough. No dumpling left behind. I'm also a smartass. So I'm not gonna lie, I was born a rock child, I was a raver kid in the 90s, and now I'm a festival mama. So I'm kind of known to partake in some illicit substances every once in a while. Only the ones Mother Nature provides. So actually, and this is the mistake that I don't want you to make. The last time I was at a big festival was Floyd Fest, one of my favorites. And I decided one night I was gonna make these. I was super hungry. Most of the people in and around my campsite were, so I wanted to cook for everybody. But I had already, in my genius thinking, had quite a few psilocybin mushrooms. So I was spacing, I was tripping a little bit, and I made the cardinal mistake of putting my dumplings in and stirring them around the pot. Don't do that, because then you're just gonna wind up with like some kind of cream of chicken soup type thing, and you won't have any dumplings. They're just gonna dissolve. It's really pretty to watch dumplings dissolve while you're stirring them, and you've had a few magical mushrooms in you, but that's not what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this lid on right here, and that is gonna stay on there. I'm gonna turn the heat down to a medium low, so that it's gonna have a very gentle light simmer, and those are gonna cook. So that lid stays on and does not come off. Don't stir it, don't look at it, don't do anything for 20 minutes. And we'll come right back and see the finished result. All right, so are you ready for the big dumpling reveal? I know that I am. So excited. All right, look at that. Look at those big, fluffy, awesome dumplings. I'm just gonna give them one little quick turn. So excited. These look amazing. Now we can give them a stir. Now that they've, perfect. Look at that, so awesome. Now that they've had a chance to cook, and I'm sober. Beautiful, so excited. Our final step, we're gonna garnish these with a good portion of fresh parsley, because everything's better when it has a bit of color. And how beautiful does that look? So excited to try it. All right, let's give these chicken and dumplings a try. Look at that big hearty chunks of chicken, carrots. This is so cozy, so awesome. I'm gonna cut into this dumpling so you guys can see exactly what they look like inside. Look how fluffy. It's so fluffy. So good, so much flavor. I promise if you make this, everybody is gonna love it. Kids, adults, what's not to love? Chicken, carrot, celery, all the herbs, all the flavor. So if you're cooking for a crowd, this is gonna be a hit, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of All Access Eats. Please subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think in the comments, and tune in next week for more recipes and stories from the road.